a previous part of this tutorial, I showed how you can get the basics of the 2D look by simply matching the surface attributes to the background color, as in white on white, and then using cell look to match to outline the area. Here's a practical application using the same technique, but instead of using a solid color, we will be using a background image. In this case, we will be using an image that looks very much like a standard blueprint. And all this is a series of white squares, just a grid over blue. I did bring this into my paint program and kind of lighten it so it looks a little bit like light is falling across here. But this is the image that's going to be basically my background. So I've loaded the image. I'm going to go to my backdrop, compositing, and I'm going to select my background image. Go to my camera view. In fact, I can even bring that up in my camera view under my display, which is select background image, which is off the screen here. Alright, not terribly complicated too far. I'm going to go back to my basic ball here, and if we render this out, of course we just have the ball over the black background. Not real impressive yet, but wait. Go in, do the same trick here. Luminosity 100%, diffuse 0. I'll set my color to this, and we would have a white circle. Give myself silhouette edges here, and we have our white ball that looks like it's over our blueprint backdrop. But we don't want it to be white, and we also don't want our edges to be black. So the first thing we're going to do is go in to the surface of the ball. I'm going to use an image map. I'm going to use front projection, which means the image is going to be perfectly registered to my background image. I'm going to turn off pixel blending, because otherwise the surface will be a little bit softer than the background. We may want it, but this time we don't. Don't trust this image here. I'm going to render it out, and look what we have here. You can just barely make it out. Let's thicken up those lines some, silhouette edges. Purposes of display, I'm going to select 5, render this. Oh, look at that. It looks like a black line is drawn, or a black circle is drawn over a background. Well, we know that's not really true, because that's our object right there. But it's not so much invisible as it is camouflaged. Well, you know, that's not how blueprints look. You don't have a black line over it. You actually have the white line. So I'm going to change the color of my edge from the default black to white. And look at that. That white looks a little too harsh for our lines here, so let's go in and tweak that a little bit. Maybe if we just bring that down, maybe soften the edge just a little bit. A little bit of blue tint, not much. Well, still a little bit hard, but you know, that might disappear when we turn on our anti-aliasing. That's a good tip. You always got, when you're working with delicate textures, be sure you check with anti-aliasing, because sometimes that can change things quite a bit. So we still have a little bit too much. Take it down. Let's try 1.5. Soften that even more. And let's see what this looks like. I think we're getting pretty close here. Okay, so compare that to this. It's a little too harsh. Practically, I probably would want to take that down maybe just a little bit more, but for our purposes here, this is fine. So, we have a circle drawn over our blueprint background. Not real impressive, but let's, you can see our ball here is kind of a little blurry. That's just purely display properties. Let's replace that ball with something more interesting, like, for instance, replace with an object. I have a cow object. Now, this is the default cow, except what I've done is I just took it into Modeler and I made the surface all one surface. And that is just because I'm lazy. See, we just have the cow tune. I'm going to go in. You know, I wish I would have copied that surface first, but that's okay. I'm going to go to front projection, turn off pixel blending, select the blueprint image. I haven't changed that. Let's take a look at this first. It's kind of an interesting effect. And you may want this. See how it's shaded? Even though the lines are all matching up, it's because we haven't cranked up our luminosity and diffuse yet. So let's do that. Render that one more time. Haven't changed anything. Okay, there's our image. Going back to the surface, 100% luminous, 0% diffuse. And the other thing I know that I need to do, the edge is still just a little bit hot, so maybe it's more like 1.2. These can be very delicate adjustments. So let's see what this looks like. I think we're pretty much in the ballpark here. And look at that. I have my hand-drawn, or my sketched cow over the blueprint background. Alright, what I'm going to do is just add me a couple of these. And you know, for now, it might be easier to switch to wireframe mode, just because they are camouflage. Put that one there. Do my Control C. Add a cow. And just position a few of these. Control C, another one. Move it over here. Just in a manner that you are used to seeing blueprint type objects. So I'll move this one forward a little bit. Rotate him. So we have kind of a Dutch view here. And let's see what this looks like here when we render it out. Taking a little longer. And you see we have some nice things going on here. Looking very hand-drawn. And remember, this is our default cow. And it took me, all of 5 seconds to change the surface. All I did was apply the front projection surface of the blueprint grid background. 100% luminous, 0% diffused. Gave it cell look edges, but I turned the edges to white. Okay, the cow isn't all that interesting. Let's try something a little bit more involved. So here we have a stock scene that comes with Lightwave. If you've installed Lightwave with content, you will receive the scene under the aviation folder. This one is Mustang Low Res. I only loaded it for the reason of example. And this is what the scene looks like rendered out. We have a very good looking airplane here over a cloudy sky. Now here's the effect that I want to achieve. The first thing I'm going to do is put a different backdrop. Instead of the cloud, I've put in my blueprint image here, just like we had before. And I've rendered it out. It takes a few minutes, so I've rendered it ahead of time. And we have the exact same image, exact same lighting, except instead of the blue cloudy background, we have the blueprint. Now, the other thing I have done is gone in and changed the surfaces from the default surfaces to the settings I've used previously. which is front projection map with the same blueprint background, turned off pixel blending. I've set it to 100% luminous, 0% diffuse. Okay. Now, rather than going in and doing each one of these hundreds of surfaces individually, what saved time was setting it once, right-clicking, I do a copy, and I can hold down, I can open all these up, hold down my Shift key, and multiple select them, and hit paste. Do that for everything, all the way down to the bottom. Hold down the Shift, select paste, and it's copied to every surface that is selected. So it's luminosity 100%. Don't let this sample sphere throw you. It gets confused when it's using front projection map. So once again, I've rendered this out, and I've gotten this. I did take the extra step of going in and selecting silhouette edges and sharp creases, and I turned it white. The other thing I did was under sharp creases, I put it at 0.75, so those are a little thinner than the silhouette edges. We take a close look here. We can see there is a slight difference between the sharp creases, which would be right here, and the silhouette edges. So there we have our blueprint plane. Looks like it could use a bit of tweaking on our edges and things because it's not showing up quite as well as we like. We have some nice detail around here. But the real interesting thing, the real nice effect you can get when you do something like this, I'm going to go into my image controls, which you may not be familiar with this. I know it hid from me for a long time. It allows you to select the current images you have rendered in the buffer. I'm going to select one as the foreground. See, we have our blueprint image and we have our full rendered image. One in the foreground, one in the background. See, horizontal. I have my little slider here. And what this does, it allows you to see two images side by side. Now, this is normally something you use when you're checking textures or perhaps your lighting, if you're doing small tweaks to your lighting. Here, it's just a way of seeing it side by side, the blueprint and the full render. Now, what I would suggest to do is save out the individual pictures and take it into either your editing program or paint program and make a nice soft edge between the two. And it can be a real nice effect, very high-techy looking. The blueprint fading into the full solid render. I would also suggest when you get to the solid render part, maybe put a drop shadow in there so it looks like it's actually coming right out of the blueprint. It's cool. Try it.